Hi, this is Morgan, reporting from New York City, where it is 35 degrees and raining.
Hi, it's Karen reporting from Los Angeles, California, where it's 72 degrees and sunny.
And welcome back to Bicoastal Besties.
This week we're going to talk about the Oscars, but I feel like more just discussing the movies that have been nominated this season.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, yeah, where should we begin? Should we start with Sinners?
Um, yeah.
Okay. So, Sinners, for those of you who do not know, is a horror film that came out it came out in 2025, and it is a vampire Southern Gothic film directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack. There are so many things that I personally love about this movie. Black Southern Gothic is one of my favorite genres of all time. Well, East Bayou is like my favorite. But even Lemonade by Beyonce is like a Black Southern Gothic film. There's just like this very specific vibe to it. There's like the Spanish moss. There's these church elements that I think are very rooted in Black Southern culture. And there's just like this certain vibe about it that just it always resonates for me. And I'm like, oh, especially when it's historically placed. So Eve's Bayou, I think, takes place in like the 40s, and Sinners is in the 1930s, if I'm not mistaken. Essentially, it follows the story of Sammy, who has these two cousins that open up a club. Then the white vampires come and tear up the club, and Sammy is the only survivor of the entire night. Long story short, spoiler alert, all that stuff. But it was nominated, I think, is the most Oscar nominated film of all time,
Yeah.
which I think is really, it's a win for me. As Issa Rae said a few years ago, I'm rooting for everybody black. And what's so interesting and fascinating specifically about this award season is like for the first few months, for the first few weeks, it really was not winning many awards, which I thought to be insane and crazy compared to the other movies that had come out. And as of late, Michael B. Jordan just won the actor award, correct?
Mhm.
Wunmi Musako won the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actress. And yeah, they've won an ensemble award. They're sweeping now at this point.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Timothy Chalamet a little sad. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry. My fault, my fault.
I wonder how you feel about this. So I saw this Instagram and it was like, oh, if Timothy Chalamet wants to go on and start like acting black and stuff like that, then he can be treated how black people have been treated in the award seasons.
If I say what I want to say, they might ban me. No, but I think there's some validity to that statement, and why I think the concept of, I guess I can refer to my photo shoot. The concept of white boy of the month, white boy of the year, all of that stuff, especially when it comes to the media that we take in and everything else, I think is really fascinating. I saw Marty Supreme. I've seen Timmy do a lot of things, and somehow it's never been as profound, or it's never resonated as much with me as the things that I've seen a lot of these other actors do, specifically black actors. And again, I have a bias, obviously, because I am in fact, sorry, I am in fact black.
You are?
In case the room didn't know, but I
Mhm.
think it's really interesting that, and I felt this way about white actresses as well, not to be controversial, but it's like there's been so many moments where I've seen these performances, I've seen these movies, whatever else, and it feels like they're doing really bare minimum stuff, and everybody's like, oh, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen. And and a lot of black actresses refer to these actresses as the Kates because a lot of their names are Kate. But they go on screen, they scream, they cry, except for Jessie Buckley, which I'll get to in a second. They go on, they go on screen, they scream and cry, and everybody is like, wow, that is an Oscar-worthy performance. Meanwhile, you have black actresses. Halle Berry is the only black actress ever to win for a leading actress performance at the Oscars. And that was over 20 years ago, I think, now. And even the content of that movie, Monsters Ball, if you haven't seen it, is a bit strange and weird. Yeah, many thoughts, many opinions. That's for another time. But black women have dominated the supporting actress category for years. So Viola Davis, Octavia Spencer, you name it, all these actors tend to win Oscars in that category, but there's something there that's like you're not quite good enough to be in leading actress category or win the leading actress category, which I think is really annoying and frustrating to me. But yeah, sorry for that rant. And,
I feel like that's valid. I
yeah,
don't know. Just like it's not even controversial, I feel like. It's just kind of like the experience of being a non-white actress in an industry that will always like champion white people.
yeah,
Like sort of the like phrase that's very popular for like literally any industry, not even just Hollywood. That's like
yeah.
people of color need to work like 10 times as hard as a white person to get the same amount of respect. Even like thinking about like the Oscars where Everything Everywhere All at Once was nominated a ton, and
Mm,
supporting actress category, and how like Stephanie Shu was like nominated and Angela Bassett was nominated for Wakanda Forever.
don't piss me off.
And Jamie Lee Curtis won it for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it was like she was barely in the movie.
Yeah. And we're talking about Oscar wins in the past, and I'm not going to bring up He Who Shall Not Be Named, who's been thanked more than God at the Oscars. He's an evil, evil man. But what he effectively did was change the way that Oscars voters went about viewing nominations and whatever else, and he would directly pander to them, reach out to them, advertise to them to get them to vote for these people. And so Judi Dench won an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love with, I think, 8 minutes total of screen time, which is crazy. And Gwyneth Paltrow also won for that movie, which, if you've never seen Shakespeare in Love, it kind of sucks. Sorry to the Shakespeare in Love fans. Anyway, let me calm myself down. Sinners. What I loved about this movie, as somebody who went to school for musical theater and has been singing in music since I was 6 years old, is the music is such an embedded part of the story. And I think the first time I reviewed it on Letterboxd, I said sometimes, or I said some of y'all just need to admit that y'all like musicals because in my personal opinion, it is sort of a musical. And it's not a musical in the way that they're like tap dancing and doing flips off the table and they're like,
Yeah,
wow,
he was
we've made
Irish
it to
dancing.
the club. Like it's a musical in the sense that one of the I mean the first thing that they talk about in the movie is music and storytelling, which I think is just so beautiful and how it's embedded in all of us. And specifically in this movie, we see experiences from Black people, Chinese people, and Irish people, which I think is a very specific and interesting choice. Because if we're talking about immigration, if we're talking about Southern culture at that time, specifically I think they're in the Alabama Delta, right?
Yeah.
I might be making that up. Yeah. It's so good. Like I I love it. There's so many layers to this movie and musically there's like the big scene where I think he's singing I Lied to You when they're in the club and we see modern looking people, we see older looking people, we see all these different cultures, but they're all ancestral to each person in that room. And
Hmm.
then we see the barn on fire and everybody just inside dancing and well, inside slash outside, the barn doesn't exist anymore in that context of the scene. But I think it's very just it's incredible. And then we see later on when everybody gets turned into vampires, almost everybody. There's still some stragglers inside the barn at this point. And they're doing the Rocky Road to Dublin, which I know he's supposed to be the antagonist, but that scene was so lit.
No, but that's what I'm saying. You said there's like no tap dancing in it, but he was Irish dancing in the middle of the circle. Like, let's talk about it.
And that will do it for me every time. You are talking to somebody who has tried to get tickets to Riverdance for 2 years. Like I loved it so much because again, it's a conversation and a commentary on conformity, and I think is kind of what that could have been saying. It could have been saying a lot of things. But that scene specifically, I thought was just so cool and so creepy, but also just so powerful at the same time. And then of course you have the final scene where he like kills him in the water and he almost looks relieved to be off in the wind. But yeah, I love that movie.
No, it was really good. And like I was like reflecting after watching it and I was like, oh, like I feel like so much of the time that I watch like movies or films or whatever nowadays, like I'm like, okay, I need to take like a couple of days to like think about like how I feel about it and like reflect. But like I was just like, damn, that was a good ass movie. Like I don't know what to say. Like
And
and
and the girls were mad. Like
I feel like a lot of people have been looking for issues with it instead of just being like, damn, that was a good ass movie. And it's not even like, oh, you need to have liked it because, you know, at the end of the day, you just aren't going to like things sometimes, and that's okay. I feel like one of the main issues people have had with it is like, they're like, oh, I don't like vampires. We don't like vampires. But I don't really feel like at the end of the day, it was really a vampire movie.
no. It's I consider it to be a cultural film that just so happens to also be a vampire movie and a musical. There, there's so there's so many aspects that make it such a powerful and compelling story. And if we're talking about Black people in film, this will kind of lead me into talking about one battle after another. There's such a difference in a Black film that has a Black director. Yeah, there's so many specific experiences that I think were not only pulled from the actors themselves, but from real life. And there was obviously so much research and so much care and specificity put into the movie. And I think that's what makes the whole of it a really beautiful and powerful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one battle after another. So I mentioned this when we were talking outside of this. I loved that this movie felt so Black woman led to me. And I think what's fascinating is PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, who's the director, is married to Maya Rudolph, which I think there were such specific moments in that movie that felt real in regards to how Black women interact with each other and in regards to how we handle hard situations, life, etc. Sorry, dating a white man. Hilarious. But so there's a moment specifically at the beginning where Perfidia and Deandra are like sitting by the fire and they make a reference to the color purple. And I remember I saw it with my friend Jasmine, who is also Black. She's also in film. Shout out Jasmine. And we were the only people in the theater that were laughing at that moment. And I was like, that is so specific and it's so close to home. And I don't think anybody in this theater gets it, but we got it, and that's what matters. There were some things I didn't like about the way Black women are filmed or framed in this movie, but there were also things I loved. I think Chase Infinity is amazing. I think that there's something so understated yet very real about the way that she played the character. It didn't feel like, but Dad, I'm just a teenager. I don't want to do this. She felt like a person, and she went through some crazy things. And Sean Penn was absolutely insane in that movie. I would have been afraid if I was acting in it. And Tiana Taylor, I'm obsessed with her. I love her so much. The way she played that character for the brief amount that she was in the movie, because she was only really in the first 30 minutes. And then all of the nuns, when they got to the got to the convent or whatever, it's it felt good to watch Black women on screen, not as side characters to the white girl or side characters to the white man, which I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio was, of course, in it, but it didn't feel like their entire existence relied on him being in the movie. They felt very individual and they felt like they had a lot of autonomy. And I think that's one of the things I really loved about the movie.
And I don't, maybe this is like a bad take, but I feel like it wasn't really about him either,
No.
which is like,
Hmm.
I feel like is like relieving just because he's such a big name now. That I feel like when you have big names like that, it's always like everything revolves around
Yeah.
them. So just like always making sure that they feel seen. But I feel like that says a lot about him as an actor as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say it didn't feel like he was like, I'm Leonardo DiCaprio, this is my movie. Because I mean, sometimes he does feel that way. But I feel like specifically in this one, it felt like the story was leading the story versus one of the actors kind of taking reign over the whole thing. Everything felt very integrated and ensemble-like to me, and I really appreciated that. I think honestly, I think we're done talking about one bad after another. Let's move on. Frankenstein, which I've been excited to talk about. I have so many thoughts. I think visually it was really beautiful. And I love Guillermo del Toro. I think that he's so whimsical in a way that I appreciate because it's absolutely I don't know. There was a scene in there that was hard to watch when he was like breaking bones and being scary. It was a little grim, but I think overall the way that he tells stories is so just it's very beautiful to me.
Yeah. No, it's the magical realism of it all.
Yeah.
Like it really affected you. Like that was something that I was so passionate about talking about in college, just because, we always had to talk about like themes of theater that like
Yeah.
really resonated with us. And for me, I always picked magical realism because that was like very, or like the concept of magical realism is very German, but
Mm.
also it's like very Latin American in that like so many of the like people who have made huge movements in like magical realism or tend to still stick to the concept of magical realism tend to be like Latino creatives.
Yeah.
I really appreciate because I feel like it's such a good tool for like storytelling that's so like subversive, but also like really gets you.
Yeah. And I think the structure of the story and also the dedication of sticking to the book quite well. Because I think a lot of times when people I'm excited to see The Bride, which is coming out with Jesse Buckley soon. I think this
Yeah,
week. But a lot of people take Frankenstein, first of all, they think Frankenstein is the monster, which he is in a way. But when they think Frankenstein, they're thinking about Frankenstein's monster, not actual Dr. Frankenstein.
yeah,
But a lot of people take it and they kind of turn it into this silly ass moment. I think Lisa Frankenstein was probably the most ridiculous adaptation, but honestly, it was a fun watch. I'm not gonna lie. What I love so much about this one, and I guess this could be a credit to Jacob Elordi, or maybe I was just, caught up. But there
girl.
was something just shut up. Anyway, there was something so it wasn't I won't say understated about the way that he went about the character, but it just felt deep and dropped into me. There's a way to be like quiet and dramatic and be like, oh, woe is me, I'm whatever. But I thought it was really cool from even a makeup and story development standpoint to like literally watch the monster like grow hair and be going through all these really like awful things. In some ways, he's literally a baby because
Hmm.
he's new, and it's like a reverse telling of the creation story. I don't know, it's really fascinating, and what happens when the creator is cruel and what
Yeah.
that produces. And, my favorite costume in the whole thing was Mia Goth's dress, the wedding dress that looked like an X-ray. I think that's what they said was the reference for building that dress. And then when she bleeds, like it's very obvious and just cool ass movie. I just there's so many beautiful things about it, and I think Oscar Isaac is also just again underrated in so many ways. Everything that I've seen him in, I've loved him in.
From Guatemala, so shout that out.
Oh, Guatemalan King.
Like
Wake that up.
he was born in Guatemala, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But like just a really beautiful actor to watch as well. I found as of late I really like watching people's faces and I like watching people's faces move. And in the world that we live in today, a lot of people don't like their faces to move and it's frustrating for me to watch.
I feel like Jacob Elordi's performance was so, so good. Good sounds like such a reductive word in that sentence. But like genuinely he was so like dropped into the character and just like watching him like make all those realizations. A lot of the time, like I'll be like, "Oh, I cried," but like I didn't like physically cry, but like internally I was like, "Oh, I could cry right now."
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even like that his performance wasn't good enough to move me to tears because if I really let myself, like I could have cried. Like it
Yeah.
was just such a beautiful performance. And like at the end when he's like watching the like sun, I was just like like
Yeah.
it was just such an amazing performance. And then another thing about Mia Goth's like whole wardrobe in the film, to be honest with you.
Ah,
Um, not to be shady, but like you can make a period piece with period appropriate wear and it can still be creative.
wake that up. Yeah. It was so beautiful. There was this one like feathered headpiece she had that I think was one of my favorite costume pieces as
I
well.
think it had like peacock feathers on it or something.
And some people, here's the thing, okay? I can suspend my disbelief for anything. When people are like, "Oh, I didn't even realize that was her playing two roles." I'm like, they give the girl some eyebrows and a nose prosthetic, and y'all don't know it's her. Wake up.
I love
Yeah,
that she played both Victor's like mother and also the woman that he was like in love with but couldn't have because like
it's a good way to like mirror the two characters, and he ate that. He ate that one little thing. But I'm excited to see how that movie does at the Oscars because I think it should win for costuming. That's my hope and dream. But we'll see. Yeah. Sentimental value. I have many thoughts.
let me just say this. I love so deeply, like it's always gonna get me every time, a good like generational trauma movie. Like every time that's gonna get me. Love so down.
Generational trauma, being sad, and acting. If you make a movie about any of those things, I'm like, ah,
That's what sentimental value was like about.
yeah.
Um, but I will say I feel like that's been such a prevalent topic with films more recently.
Hmm.
For example, one of my favorite generational trauma films, Turning Red.
Which perfect generational trauma film.
No,
Yeah.
I feel like that is a film that really like hits my inner child like every time because I'm like, "Ah."
I too am a red panda. Like I like I get it.
I feel like the most popular one recently was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm,
It's also a phenomenal generational trauma film. But yeah, I feel like this just kind of hit those mark. Like it, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was bad.
mm.
But I feel like it kind of hit those marks and it was about generational trauma and about being sad and about acting and sort of like figuring those relationships out with like people who have kind of been absent and then figuring out why. And it's like,
Yeah. I think the color palette and the cinematography were really gorgeous to me. There were so many blues.
mhm.
And blue is like my favorite color to see in film. I think it just really reads well. Blues and greens. And I mean, I think Stellan Skarsgård is a really good actor in the way that he's really good at playing who he is.
Loved him in Mamma Mia. Um,
Loved Mamma Mia. Yeah, yeah. I think he's really good at being a father because that's who he is. And the strain of the relationship between him and Nora, I thought was really interesting because you could feel like the love, but also the disdain that they both had for each other. And one of my favorite moments is when it has their faces like mirrored essentially, and there's just like this light going around them. So one half the face is him, one half the face is her. And the relationship that fathers have with their daughters, I think, can be so complex and so like I just that was just an aspect of the film that I really enjoyed. And I also resonated with like the house being just such a space of kind of like this what's the word they use in theater school? Like a pressure cooker of a place. If I
Yeah,
feel like if this were a play, the whole thing would take place in the house,
yeah,
and all of the tensions that were there and everything that happened in that house and how much sentimental value, hence the title, there was in the home, and how the final scene, it was almost confusing because it's like they tore the house apart and then it was this new modernized version of the house, which could be a metaphor for a lot of things. And then we see that they're actually filming the movie that, whatever. If you see the movie, you know what we're talking about. But yeah, I thought it was a really gorgeous movie. It didn't, make me cry and roll around on the floor. But I really did love it.
I
Yeah,
agree with you. Like a good, just like a lot of movies that talk about father-daughter relationships. I'm like,
yeah.
oh. And then movies that talk about mother-daughter relationships. I'm like, fuck. And
I'm
then
like,
it's just like any movies about relationships.
yeah. And then it's like, don't let it be about sisters. Oh,
Can't relate
but
to
a
that
movie, well, yeah. A movie that did make me cry and roll around the floor was Hamnet. I know Karen hasn't seen it yet, so I'll keep it spoiler free.
one.
But yeah, I think that Jessie Buckley has one of my favorite faces I've ever seen on my screen. There's just something so she's so expressive, and when she smiles, it's so real. Like it's just like there's something so sincere and genuine about every emotion that she portrays. And I think that's the hallmark of being a good actor, which it sounds so like simple and basic, but I think that she's not portraying the emotion, she's feeling them.
Yeah.
And she's just an absolute joy to watch.
Yeah, she's just a really phenomenal actress.
She, yeah, and she's a musical theater girl for the people who did not know. She played Sally Bowles in Cabaret on the West End for a significant amount of time. When they opened it, she was Sally.
Yeah.
And again, there's always just something so grounded and also simultaneously unhinged about her performances that makes them so compelling to watch. And specifically with Hamnet, there's a scene at the end where they're at the Globe, which me and Karen know the Globe. We both studied abroad in London and performed at the Globe and studied the Globe and were lived and died at the Globe. But there's this moment about the communal experience of theater and having everybody feel the
Yeah.
same thing in that moment. And I think that it's one of my favorite things in the world. It's such a specific emotion, and the fact that they were able to portray that on screen is really cool. And so excited for my queen to win her Oscar. Oh, it's gonna be great. I Weapons was one of my favorite movies of 2025. There's something just I love horror to begin with, but I
Yeah.
think specifically with that movie, the structure of the storytelling and revealing the villain more than halfway through the movie, and the way they went about it, and the way that she had her downfall was excellent. And I think they did a good job at upholding the suspense, but not to a point where it was annoying. It was like the stories leading into the reveal were still compelling. The movie was also funny at so many moments, like actually hilarious. Um,
Austin, wait,
mhm.
Austin Abrams? Yeah, Austin Abrams
Yes.
movie was so hilarious.
Yeah, he's like, I'm phobic. Yeah, like he's just like so really good writing, but also a heartbreaking story about just like again trauma in some ways. And I remember Zach Krieger was like, "Yeah, I had a dream about some of these things, and I don't really know what they mean." But yeah, I don't know. I loved it.
Little kid was just so adorable. I was like so sad all of this was happening to him because I was like, no, you have the most blinkiest eyes in the
I'm
world.
like, please, not him. Like, and even in Hamnet too, there's a child in there, and some of these child actors, I'm like, I don't know what y'all are feeding them. I don't know where they're coming from. But it's like in also A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, different story. There's a little bald child in that, which
I've seen interviews of him.
you guys, I like these little these little sad children are so good. And I'm like, I hope you have not been through anything hard. I'm like, maybe these are the pandemic babies who just like are just, life's a little tough. So they have some depth to them. But these child actors are really incredible. And yeah,
Even, I think his name's Owen Cooper.
yes, in adolescence.
Yeah. Like even him, he's been sweeping the awards this season. Like,
Phenomenal. And there's so many things to be said about children and child actors, but I mean, they put it away. I don't know. Like, what can I say? But yeah, I loved Weapons, and I think Amy Madigan deserved her actor award because she is
mhm,
so
scary.
she's scary. And the way that they did, again, hair and makeup and the teeth they gave her, the hair they gave her, all of it was so, I don't know. It was a well done movie. And I think Zach Krieger, a lot of people didn't like Barbarian. I enjoyed Barbarian. I
Barbarian
thought it
was
was
so
so weird.
good. I was when I watched Barbarian, I was in Big Bear with my
Hmm.
friends and we were staying in an Airbnb. And there was like a freaking chain, I guess, like attached to like the bottom of the bed. And
No, thank you.
I was like,
Good on that. We don't even have to play that
and like
game.
if we think about it, like just in the context, like it's probably just like people being freaky. But like after watching
Honestly,
Barbarian,
even worse. I would rather there be a creepy naked monster in the basement. Um, but yeah. I think weapons because Zach Krieger used to be a comedy writer, I think, for Comedy Central as well. So I think there's something to be said about directors and writers, Jordan Peele included, and I think actors in general, where I've heard this said before, if you're a really good comedic actor, you're probably really good at doing the drama stuff too, or even the horror things, because it's like you have an understanding of how people are receiving what you're saying.
yeah,
And I think sometimes like actors that are just straight dramatic are just like, I'm sad and I'm moody, but they're not really thinking about the external of it all.
yeah,
Um, I think Jordan Peele is just the perfect example. I wish Jordan Peele would drop another movie soon, please. I would love to talk about it. But no, like Jordan Peele is a perfect example of that. And like the way that there were some funny moments in Get Out, there's some funny moments in Us, there were some funny moments in Nope, but the overall stories were so strong and compelling. And the heavy
dude,
moments that were heavy hit hard
that scene in Nope when the
with the
little
monkey.
kids,
Oh,
no, when the little kids dress up as like aliens and
yeah.
they're in a barn, that shit was so fucking scary. So there's like three Gladys jump scares. I feel like in
Hmm.
there's the
Oh my God.
there's the one where like it's God, I can't remember her name, but she plays the teacher.
Julia Garner.
Yeah, Julie
Yeah.
Gardner. She like sees her on top of her ceiling or whatever. Like that scary in the moment, fine. Then there's the one where like Austin Abrams is like running through the woods and he like sees her. The one where the dad turns the little boy around on the bed and it's freaking her face. Literally, like I'll be like super stressed out and I can't go to bed at night and I'm like thinking of all the things I shouldn't be thinking of and then I start thinking about that and I'm like, why am I thinking about this right now?
That so good because not only was that insane and crazy, but then he goes, "What the fuck?" Which is exactly what everybody in the theater was thinking. So good. Excellent. I loved it.
Watching Weapons really made me realize how much I rely on my phone when I watch like scary movies.
Yeah.
Because I watched it in the theater and I'm like, I can't go on my phone. I can't protect myself. So like I was just like watching it in this dark theater and like felt like I was by myself.
Yeah.
There was these jump scares and I was like, there's nowhere for me to run.
I can't
Nowhere for
can't
me to
hide. We're in this together.
run. And I'm like eating
Um,
popcorn and I'm like,
it's you
oh.
in that screen. The last thing that we want to talk about from the Oscars was in the documentary category. There were a couple documentaries. There was the Alabama Solution, which, if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch. It's on HBO Max, and it talks about the prison industrial complex and the way that they're essentially exploiting these people for their labor, but also not protecting them. But we watched The Perfect Neighbor, which, first of all, one of the most heartbreaking documentaries I've ever seen in my lifetime. Again, but the way that they went about the editing and the shooting of it, it wasn't like a typical documentary where you have people sitting and kind of doing confessionals and jumping back and forth between real footage. It was all body cam and ring footage. And so you're pretty much getting the story as like clips as it's actually happening. And you have people on the phone talking to the cops. You have interviews from the actual interrogation and everything else. And essentially, it was about this crotchety old white lady who is living in like a neighborhood of black people and was constantly calling the cops on them for playing outside, for making noise, for their dogs, whatever else. And one of the moms goes to her house to confront her because she took the kid's iPad or something.
She threw roller skates at him and took his tablet.
Yeah. So this old white lady took a young black child's tablet, was throwing things at him, cussing them out. She was also calling them the N-word and other crazy, ridiculous things. So the mom goes to her house and is knocking on the door. The lady's like, "Oh, she was banging on my door. I was scared she's gonna break my door down, whatever." And this woman ends up shooting her through the door. She was like, "Oh, I thought she was gonna kill me." All just actually so insane and ridiculous. I can't even I can't fully express how stupid and crazy it was. You honestly have to watch it for yourself.
Well, genuinely, like it was such a jaw-dropping, bewildering moment when they were like, how much time passed between when you called the police
Yeah.
versus when he shot her. She was like, oh, I don't know. I like went to the bathroom and I was washing my hands and I was like looking for my phone. I lost it. I couldn't find my phone between when I called the police and like shot her through the door. And they were like, it was 2 minutes. And I was like, that,
And the footage of everybody around this woman, because the documentary starts with the phone call that's made, I think, by one of the neighbors. And eventually gets to the point where, we see this woman who's a mother and an anchor in the community, like somebody that everybody loved. And we see her on the ground and they're trying to like resuscitate her and everything. But the worst part, I think, was watching her children, and them having to tell these children that their mom had died. And I think it adds like such a raw and real look at the aftermath of when these things happen. And not when these things happen, when people make these decisions to take somebody else's life based off of their own hatred and whatever else, and seeing how everybody is affected by that, specifically their family members. It was so devastating. And then to go see her police interrogation, just raggedy and
dude,
lame.
the
I
letter that she wrote.
Go on, talk about the letter, Karen. Why don't we?
So basically, there's so many interrogations where she's just, I don't know, you can say a lot of things. You can say she just didn't remember that she was lying. Like, it's just the interrogations are just all over the place because she can't get her story straight. And just like they have so much incriminating evidence against her just from
Yeah.
the things they found, like that she's posted on Facebook or has searched up and stuff like that. And also the fact that she's been harassing her neighbors for like months at this point. So they have all
Yeah.
that, and all the neighbors could corroborate the story. But they tell her they're basically like, "You're guilty. We're gonna take you to jail." And this part made me laugh because she went, "No." And I was like,
Like, and that's a gag. It's like white people, it's like you're going to jail. No. You are going to jail tonight. Like,
they gave
uh,
her they gave her a notepad, and they're like, these three children just lost their mother. So we give people the option sort of to like write a letter to the like victim's family. And she was like, okay. And then in the letter, she was basically was just like, oh, I was scared that your mom was going to kill me. Didn't mean to kill her. Sorry.
jail tonight.
It was just so wild because it's like you just like killed these children's mother and you show absolutely no remorse about it. Even if what she said was true and that it was an accident and she didn't mean to shoot
Of course
her
you
or
did.
whatever, and she was just trying to scare her. It's like I feel like a normal person would have remorse about that and feel bad, especially considering like the loss of the family. But it's
Yeah.
just how
I mean, and even when they went to her house and she was like, "Can you guys close the door? I don't want my cats to get out." I was like, "Fuck them cats." You Her mind was obviously like not there, but it's just there was no consideration for the level of depth and consequence like of what she did. It was crazy. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you watch. And also just like the again, there's always moments in there that are just kind of funny, but like listening to the kids like talk about her, like just the kids in the neighborhood, they're like, "Yeah, she's crazy." Like it's just it's like she's like this villain in this neighborhood, rightfully
yeah,
so. And the fact that it got to this point and trying to weaponize the police against these children and the people in the community and it didn't work and it ended with her shooting somebody is just like so raggedy.
it is a really hard watch though.
Yeah. I like so if you're in the mental state to watch it, I say take a watch. If you're having a hard time, don't watch it. If you're having a day where you want to actually learn something and like see if you can handle that emotionally, I say I recommend that you watch. I do understand why it was Oscar nominated, and I don't know if it got nominated for editing as well, but I think it could have. Anyway, that's not everything that was nominated, but that's kind of a run through of everything that we wanted to talk about Oscars wise. And we're excited to see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a really interesting year. I think there were a lot of really great things that came out this year. I think there were some things where it's just like, okay, we'll see. I think there were a lot of movies where it felt like it was made in the sense of like somebody's like, time to win some Oscars.
Like you can tell that they're just going for an Oscars
Yeah.
run. Like I feel like it just doesn't really feel true, which is I feel like is kind of the way that art has been going recently anyway,
Yeah.
because people aren't really looking to tell stories or like be truthful anymore. It's just kind of like I want some awards. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, and that's what He Who Should Not Be Named. Well, there's multiple He's Who Should Not Be Named, but
Yeah, I'm
the
like, I don't
main
know.
one this year with a movie that rhymes with Party
Oh, yes.
Supreme. Anyway. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, so before we close the episode, we want to get into our traffic reports for the week. So Karen, what were you getting into?
So I went to the Compton Art and History Museum, which if you live in LA, I would highly suggest checking out. They're kind of like in a small venue right now, kind of in a strip mall. But right now they're doing an exhibition about like love, and it's just really interesting. And it's like it's a really cute museum, and like I do love like supporting like local artists and also like local museums, but they are moving to like a bigger venue where
Hmm.
they're like sort of an exhibition about like the history of Compton and just like the artists from there, and then also just like rotating exhibitions. And I know that they've worked with museums in France before, which is like really awesome. But I went for a screening of a documentary, and it was like really interesting just to like sort of hear the experiences of, I think his name is Alonzo Williams.
Hmm.
He had like a lot of different groups. I don't remember the time period. It was like maybe like 80s, 90s, maybe before.
Yeah.
He had this like club in El Segundo called Eve After Dark. And like when Dr. Dre performed at the Super Bowl on his stage, it said like Eve After Dark too, because it was like sort of this space for like people to go and like have fun and like see DJs. And it was like really cool to just see sort of the impact that he has had on like younger artists, because I know like a lot of the artists that were interviewed said that like he would have a studio space and would either charge them very little or let them do it for free just so that they could like experiment. And he like mentored a lot of young artists. So it was just really awesome to see sort of like how important community is, especially I
Yeah.
think like this, where like it's so important to like connect with the people around you and like get to know your neighbors and just sort of like invest in your own communities. I think is sort of like something that I guess the digital age has like taken away from us, because it's like, oh, I don't really like, I don't know, this is a tangent, but like people don't really check on their friends anymore, I feel like, or like text them. Or it's like, it is what it is. Like, I don't really need to talk to you because I can see you posting on social media. So I know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, but like,
It's that false sense of connection and feeling like access is communication, but it's not.
and it's like, like friendship is so important. And like just connecting with the people around you is so important. So talk to a stranger. For
Yeah.
me, I notice myself like having a harder time like saying hi to like people who say hi to me, because I'm like, oh, like that's awkward, but it's not at the end of the day. Like it's just polite.
Yeah.
I also went to two hockey games, which was really interesting. The one thing I'll say is the Kings are having a time right now, you know? It's one of the teams I root for. But they just fired their coach and like a majority of their roster is injured. So like I was last night I went to a game and they played the Colorado Avalanche, and I was like had no expectations going in because the Colorado Avalanche are the best team in the NHL right now.
Hmm.
Like, oh, they're doing well. But like
Just a little exhibition match. Yeah.
they did well. They did good. And I was
Hmm.
really happy because it was three of the players like NHL debuts. Like it was their first time playing the NHL, and one of them scored, and I was like, wow, what a fun game. Also, focusing on women's sports right now, currently happening is the She Believes Cup, which is like sort of a cup that is highlighting just like women being professional soccer players and like inspiring young girls to like pursue that career path. And like right now, the four teams they're highlighting are the US, Canada, Colombia, and Argentina. And like watching these games, I'm just like, it's so entertaining because with a lot of men's soccer matches that I've watched and have seen, like a player like taps another player and they like are rolling around. Like one time
Oh, and it's like, girl, shut up.
at a game, and one of the players like got tapped by another player and he rolled, and I like whispered to my parents. I was like, I hope he flips again. And he did. I was like, girl, what are we doing? Like that's not true. Like there's a big embellishment and like acting aspect I feel like that comes with the territory of men's soccer. I enjoy like women's soccer so much more because like literally they'll get like their hair yanked, or they'll like anything else will happen. They'll like get pushed really hard and they just keep going. So if you have time, I would look into that because it's really interesting, and it's like it's good matchups.
Um, last week was honestly so insane and crazy for me, but I did a lot of really fun stuff. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I saw Blackout Songs, which is actually one of my favorite plays. We saw it in London back in 2022. Ugh. Um, at the Hampstead Theater in the basement. It's a two-person play, and it's about these people who meet in AA and their relationship together. And it's kind of told in this like weird non-linear way where it's like jumping through time, and yeah, it's heartbreaking, but it's really good. And one of the final scenes of the show is them looking at like one of the characters, the male character is a painter. And he talks about like this painting that he painted that's just limbs. And the girl is like, "Well, what is it?" And he was like, they were called the children of the moon, and essentially they were one big body. And the gods were like, we don't like that. So they split them apart. And they spent the rest of their lives searching for the other half. And the hardest part was that they still had all the memories. And I was like, oh, so
Yeah,
good. Excellent. It's a beautiful play. It's by Joe White.
it's really good. Like it's
It's
a
really good, and it has some of the best written natural speech, I think, in a play. It feels very natural. And the actors were like super strong. It was I love that play. And it was at MCC, which is a theater here in New York City that's off Broadway, which has a bunch of theaters in it. But it was in a black box. But what was different about this time from when we saw it last time is they kind of had more of like a room set. So
Hmm.
it was kind of set in like a fellowship hall of a church type thing. So it was still like, just one room and they're moving around the room in different places. But it felt a little bit more established in that way. But yeah, beautifully done. And this was the closing matinee, so it was really cool to kind of see the final performance of the show. And one of my favorite things to do is like see an opening of a show and a closing of a show because I think like to see how the show's changed and how it's developed as like the actors have kind of sat with it for a while is one of the coolest things to experience. Okay, so literally a few hours after I saw Blackout Songs, I saw Mavis Staples in concert, which if you don't know Mavis Staples, she's literally been around forever. She was like one of the most prominent singers during the civil rights movement. She's been performing since I, I don't even know. She was born in 1939, I think. She's 86 years old. Birthday coming up July 10th. She's a Cancer. Literally, she's adorable, probably like 5 feet tall, and still moving and still singing her songs. And yeah, it was a fun little time. She was like, you guys know Taylor?" We're like, "Who?" She's like, "Taylor Swift." And we're like, "Oh." She's like, "Yeah, she sings Shake 'em Up." And we were like, I was like, "I think that's the song." Um, but yeah, she was great and it was a really fun time and I was able to get those tickets from a coworker and that was like really cool and awesome. And lastly, last night I performed at 54 Below for the second time, which was really fun and cool. And it was one of my favorite things, a Beyonce themed cabaret. And there's something so special about performing with a group of Black people, number one, but also to just have like that community and that team, even like we literally met each other yesterday, all of us did. But to be able to sing together and like commune over this common interest and just have the most fun time, it was probably the most fun I've had performing since I moved to the city, honestly.
What song you sang?
Well, I sang two. I did Daddy Lessons as a trio, which is one of my favorite Beyonce songs. I would say it's like her first like real country song that she put out, and it was on Lemonade. The second song I did was Drunken Love, which is so silly. I don't know if anybody will ever see that footage, but it was so fun, and it was just so yeah, like it was a great time, and it was at 9:30 p.m., so I am absolutely exhausted, but it was such a good experience, and I hope that everybody gets to sing some Beyonce with their friends at some point. I think it's necessary. Speaking of music, let's talk about our songs we put on the playlist this week.
The songs I put this week were Witches by Alice Phoebe Lou. I love that song. I feel like it's very just like vibey and it's just, I don't know, like sometimes it's fun to pretend to be a witch with your friends. And that's how I feel. And I stand by that. Then I have Bleed by Malcolm Todd featuring Omar Apollo. I just love that song.
Hmm.
The music video is like pretty silly. So if you have, I would watch that. Then I have Sunshine by Steve Lacy featuring Kushi. I feel like since it's been like warmer, that's kind of like the vibe that I've been in. I love the part when he's like saying my ex, like my name ain't Steve. I love that part. Then I have Snap My Finger by Kate Renata featuring Pink Panthers. I love Kate Renata. Shout out Montreal.
Yep.
Um, I like have not stopped listening to Stateside by Pink Panthers, and I did not want to put Stateside on there. Maybe I should next time. But
Hmm.
like I don't know, I just their minds together. And then my last song was Best to You by Blood Orange featuring Empress of. And I've seen Blood Orange in concert numerous times and just it's always my favorite song to hear live and is genuinely one of my favorite songs in the world. So I was like shuffling my music and it played and I was like, ugh, forgot about this song. Even though I didn't, I was listening to it like a month ago, but it is
I
what it is.
love Blood Orange. Yeah. So my songs this week, I feel like there's one that's kind of an outlier in terms of the vibes for the week, but the first song that I put on there is Doo Wop, That Thing by Lauryn Hill, which has been one of my favorite songs literally of all time. But I don't know why. This week I was just like, I was just feeling it. Like I was just feeling very like 90s vibes. I think it was like warm like one day and I was like walking around listening to it and I was just like, ah, warm being above 30 degrees. And yeah, I just The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is one of my favorite albums of all time. I think it's one of the best albums of all time. There's a reason why she won a shit ton of Grammys for it. She's just her mind. Next song is Good Flirts by Baby Keem featuring Momo Boyd and Kendrick Lamar. First of all, the song so good. Uh, but Momo Boyd, okay. I love, if you don't know Infinity Song, they're a band. It's literally four siblings. They're all gorgeous. They're all amazing. But her voice is just so warm. It has so much depth. And she has another song called American Love Song, which I cry to sometimes. But I love her so much. And I feel like this song is going to be the one that like makes her blow up. Um, Also, I like Baby Keem. I think he's really talented.
My favorite Baby Keem verse is "On Like Him" by Tyler, the Creator.
Next song I have is Mangosteen by Nashant, Sailor, and Biako. Um, and it's just like such a fun, like little upbeat song. I put it on my little Instagram post. I really like it because it's just like a guitar and a beat. And sometimes that's all you need, and like a good little hook and a little singy song. And yeah, I really enjoy it. Then I added Dog Years by Maggie Rogers, which I just love Maggie Rogers. I think she's a genius and I really love her voice. She's yeah, I love that white lady. And lastly, I added What You Need by Thames. Y'all need to stop playing with Thames, okay? Number one. Number two, another voice that's just so perfect and has so much depth. But it's also just a beautiful song, and it's kind of about choosing yourself in in a rough situation. Yeah, it's been on repeat, of course, but it's a beautiful song. But yeah, that's what I have this week.
Was supposed to perform at Camp Flog Gnaw, and then when they had to reschedule because of the weather, she couldn't
Mhm.
anymore. It was so sad.
Fuck. She's also the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your lifetime. She's gorgeous. Yeah, there's a picture of her on my wall. Anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed the episode this week of us just chatting about movies and whatnot. And yeah, anything you want to say, Karen, before we sign off?
No, I don't really think like girl, if I start saying something else, we're gonna be here for another 10 minutes. So I
All
don't
right, anyway. But anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
yes.
Yeah.
Love y'all.
Love you. Bye.